What if everything you were taught about fairness is the reason you have no power? There is a moment most people miss. It happens in the blink of an eye. Someone interrupts you mid-sentence. They dismiss your idea as if it never mattered. They laugh just slightly at the wrong time. And inside, something shifts. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts race. Your ego whispers, say something, defend yourself, show them who you are. So you do. You explain. You justify. You try to sound calm, but underneath, you're emotional. You want them to understand you. You want things to be fair. And yet, something strange happens. The room doesn't shift toward you. It shifts away. Because power was never in your words. It was in your control. Most people don't realize this. They believe if they are good, respectful, fair, life will reward them. That people will notice their effort, their honesty, their intentions. Our reality operates differently. Quietly. Coldly. Strategically. In the real world, people don't respond to fairness. They respond to perception. To control. To emotional stability. And the ones who understand this rarely appear powerful at first. They are not the loudest, not the most aggressive, not the most emotional. They are the most calm. They observe more than they speak. They react less than they feel. They move with intention, not impulse. And slowly, they gain control, because when you react impulsively, you hand your power away. Every word, every gesture, every flash of emotion reveals your position, your intentions, your weaknesses. Power doesn't work on fairness. It works on strategy, on awareness. On perception. And the ones who master it, master life itself. Most people mistake ruthlessness for cruelty. They think it means hurting others, manipulating, or being cold. But true ruthlessness is something far more subtle. It is clarity, the ability to see reality as it is, without illusions, the courage to act decisively, without hesitation, the discipline to protect yourself in a world that does not operate on fairness. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. Being nice does not earn respect. Being fair does not get power. Reacting emotionally only gives away control. So the question is not whether the world is fair. It isn't. The question is whether you will continue to play by rules that were never designed for power, or whether you will finally see what's really happening beneath the surface. In the next 45 minutes, you will watch the rules of life reveal themselves, not in theory, but in the subtle, silent, psychological ways power is claimed, maintained, and defended. You will see the truth about human behavior, the invisible currents that guide influence, and why the quiet, controlled, and strategically ruthless rise while the fair and nice often fall behind. Once you understand this, you cannot unsee it, because power is not given. It is observed. It is calculated. It is earned silently, deliberately, ruthlessly. And it starts here. Fairness. It's one of the most comforting ideas humanity has ever created. From childhood, we are told that fairness matters, that doing the right thing, following the rules, and being honest will lead to recognition, reward, and respect. But the truth is far more unsettling. Fairness is mostly an illusion. It exists in theory, in stories we tell ourselves, in rules on paper, rarely in outcomes, because when decisions are made real, high-stakes decisions, fairness is not the driving force. Advantage is, influence is, positioning is. Consider a workplace. Two employees are equally talented. Both work tirelessly, following every rule. Both are good people. One of them is quietly strategic. They pay attention not only to their work, but to how others perceive it. They notice who holds influence, which conversations matter, who gets visibility. They don't compete aggressively. They place themselves subtly in moments that count. At the end of the quarter, the quiet strategist is promoted. The other, the one who worked diligently but assumed fairness would speak for them, is overlooked. It feels unjust. It feels wrong. And yet, this is reality. People don't reward effort. They reward perception, results, influence, presence. Fairness exists in theory. Power exists in execution. This pattern repeats everywhere: social circles, corporate hierarchies, even politics. The person who is seen, positioned, and understood by others as capable, confident, and indispensable rises faster than the one who is simply good. History is filled with examples. Leaders who were ruthless yet strategic overtook those who played by idealistic rules. Innovators who positioned themselves in the right moments often succeeded over those with better ideas but less awareness. Influence, perception, and timing mattered far more than merit or fairness. It is uncomfortable to admit. Most people want to believe that the world is just, that fairness determines outcomes. They cling to it as a moral anchor. But in doing so, they blind themselves to the subtle currents of power that operate beneath the surface. Understanding this is not cynicism, it is clarity. Once you begin to observe these patterns, you start to notice moments where fairness failed. You see how people respond, not to effort, but to impact, to positioning, to subtle advantage. And this realization changes everything. You stop expecting life to reward fairness. Instead, you begin to analyze the game itself. You study who gains influence, why they are elevated, and how they maintain it. You learn that outcomes are dictated not by ideals, but by awareness, strategy, and timing. Fairness is comforting, but comfort really builds power. The world does not reward the fair. It rewards the prepared, the aware, and the strategically positioned. And the first step to true influence is seeing the illusion for what it is, and letting go of the belief that life owes you anything. Because once you do, everything shifts. Being nice is often celebrated, polite, considerate, cooperative. These qualities make people like you, but they rarely make people respect you. In fact, excessive niceness can be dangerous because it sends a subtle signal, a signal that your boundaries are flexible, that your approval can be earned, that your position can be tested. And humans are always testing boundaries, not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively. Every interaction becomes a measure. How far can I push this person before they react? How much can I take before they speak up? How much control do they have over themselves and over me? If you are nice, you hand them the answers without realizing it. Always agreeing, over-explaining, apologizing unnecessarily. These behaviors are a roadmap to vulnerability. People unconsciously sense weakness. They feel it in the hesitation before you speak, in the subtle over-justifications, in the way you avoid saying no. And when they feel it, they test it repeatedly. It might start with small things, interrupting you, taking credit for your ideas, dismissing your input, but over time, it escalates. You become predictable, manageable, controllable. Nice people often believe that patience and politeness will earn respect, that kindness will be reciprocated. It rarely is. Respect is not given for intent. It is earned through clarity, boundaries, presence. The world does not measure your worth by how considerate you are. It measures it by how you respond when you fail to assert yourself, when you allow others to overstep. You are quietly conceding authority, and no one notices at first until patterns emerge. People talk over you. Decisions happen around you. Your ideas, though brilliant, are ignored. Others move ahead while you remain unseen. Niceness without boundaries becomes a liability. But here's the paradox. The moment you set limits, the moment you refuse to over-explain, the moment you assert yourself calmly, you immediately gain power. Not through aggression, not through cruelty, but through clarity. People respect those who make their limits known, who enforce them, who operate from a position of control rather than fear. And this is why some people speak less, yet influence more. They do not chase approval. They do not fear disagreement. They do not overcompensate for perceived shortcomings. Instead, they operate from a place of certainty. And certainty commands attention. It shifts perception. It creates influence. So being nice is not the problem. Being vulnerable in the absence of control is. The lesson is simple, but uncomfortable. If your kindness comes from fear of rejection or desire for acceptance, it is no longer kindness. It is weakness, and weakness, in environments where perception governs reality, is a cost you can afford to pay. Nice people lose power not because they are inherently weak, but because they confuse approval with authority, empathy with vulnerability, and politeness with influence. True power begins when niceness is tempered with boundaries and respect is demanded, not begged for. Emotion is natural, reaction is a choice, and that choice determines how much power you have. Every time you react instantly, you reveal something: your triggers, your insecurities, your expectations. And predictability is dangerous. People can manipulate what they can predict. They can exploit what they understand. They can pressure what they see as weak. Think about someone who gets angry the moment they are challenged, or someone who becomes defensive when questioned. You know exactly how to push their buttons, exactly where to strike. But someone who stays calm, who controls the impulse to react, becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. This is why emotional discipline is not just a skill. It is a weapon, a shield, a form of influence, powerful. Individuals understand this deeply. They do not rush to defend themselves. They do not argue to be right. They do not feel the need to justify or explain. They pause. They observe. They let tension rise and fall like a tide, and while others reveal everything, they reveal very little. Every silence, every delayed response, every controlled gesture communicates authority without saying a word, because people always underestimate restraint. They rely on reactions to gauge strength. They assume that silence equals weakness, and when they are wrong, it shifts the dynamic entirely. Your calm becomes their frustration. Your observation becomes their exposure. Your patience becomes your advantage. Emotional control is not about suppressing. Feelings. It is about timing. Knowing when to respond, knowing what to reveal, knowing when to remain invisible, because sometimes the strongest move is not to act at all. To say nothing. To let the moment pass, to let others stumble into their own errors. And when you respond, it is deliberate, calculated, precise. Your words carry weight because they are measured. Your actions hold impact because they are intentional. Your presence commands attention because it is unshakable. This is why the calm are feared, not for aggression, but for control. People who react emotionally give their power away. People who act deliberately claim theirs. And once you experience the subtle dominance of emotional control, everything shifts. You begin to see the difference between impulsive influence and deliberate authority. You begin to notice how quickly people give up control. When they realize they cannot predict your next move, you begin to understand that silence, restraint, and measured response are not passive. They are active strategies of power. The world does not reward those who feel deeply and act immediately. It rewards those who feel deeply and act with intention, because control over yourself is the first step to control over everything else. And once you grasp that, nothing and no one can manipulate you without your consent. Most people talk too much. Not because they have to, not because they truly want to, because silence is uncomfortable, and discomfort triggers action. So they fill the void with words, explanations, justifications, opinions, filler. Every word reveals something. Your thoughts, your fears, your intentions, every gesture, every pause, every rushed sentence exposes more than you realize. But silence does the opposite. Silence protects. Silence conceals. Silence commands attention. It creates mystery, uncertainty. And uncertainty is power. When you remain silent, others feel compelled to fill the gap. They speak more. They over-explain. They reveal secrets they never intended to share. In conversations, in meetings, in negotiations. Every human being has a need to be understood, to justify themselves, to fill empty spaces. When you withhold words, they do the work for you. They hand you information. And if you are observing carefully, you gain an advantage that words alone cannot provide. Body language, tone, micro-expressions, hesitations, contradictions, all of these subtle cues are the breadcrumbs of intention. And most people miss them because they are too busy speaking, too busy reacting, too busy trying to be right. A person who masters strategic silence becomes like a shadow in a room, present, but elusive, calm, but attentive, quiet, but everywhere. You begin to notice patterns. You see inconsistencies. You detect what motivates people and what terrifies them. And with each observation, your influence grows because people react to what they perceive, not what is true. They respond to confidence, calmness, and controlled presence. Your silence makes them fill the narrative themselves. Your observation allows you to act precisely when the moment demands it. And this is why some of the most powerful people in history or in any organization are the ones who speak less, yet hold more influence. Not because they dominate conversations, not because they shout louder, not because they assert themselves aggressively, but because they see more, they know more, they wait until others reveal everything willingly. Every word you withhold, every gesture you measure, every pause you allow becomes an invisible tool of control. Strategic silence transforms the way others perceive you. From ordinary to formidable, from reactive to untouchable, from visible to unavoidable. The quiet are often underestimated, and that is their advantage, because in a world that rewards noise, the one who chooses silence commands it. They are not weak. They are not shy. They are deliberate. They are aware. They are untouchable. Observation and silence are not passive. They are calculated, strategic. Ruthless and mastering them changes everything. Attachment feels. Natural we cling to outcomes, to approval, to what others think of us is human. But in the pursuit of influence and power, attachment is a vulnerability. Because the moment you need something, you become predictable. You become manipulable. If you crave approval, a compliment can control your mood. If you fear rejection, criticism can control your actions. If you need a specific result, uncertainty can control your decisions. Attachment is subtle, yet it erodes power faster than any visible threat. Detachment, on the other hand, creates freedom from emotional manipulation, freedom from impulsive decisions, freedom from the invisible pressure others place on you. It is not indifference, not coldness, not apathy. It is clarity. Detached individuals observe without bias. They evaluate without desperation. They respond without expectation, and clarity produces strength. Because when you do not need validation, you cannot be shaken by rejection. When you do not depend on outcomes, you do not panic when things do not go your way. When you are free from attachment, you act strategically instead of emotionally. Consider the subtle difference in influence. A person desperate for approval will agree, over-explain, and overcompensate. A detached person will nod, observe, and respond deliberately. The first is controlled by others. The second controls the situation without force. Detachment allows you to engage with the world on your terms. It makes your presence stable, consistent, and intimidating without raising your voice. People sense it. They feel the difference between neediness and independence. They notice when someone is present but untouchable, engaged but not dependent. And in a world driven by emotion, that perception is power. Detached individuals also make better decisions because they are not clouded by fear, desire, or attachment to specific outcomes. They see situations clearly. They anticipate moves. They act when necessary. When they act, their actions carry authority. Because there is no desperation, no hesitation, no emotional overreach. They are not reacting. They are executing. Detachment does not make you immune to life's challenges. It makes you aware, poised, and prepared to respond in ways that others cannot. It allows you to invest your energy where it matters, to conserve strength, to maintain focus, and this is why those who master detachment often rise while others struggle. Because freedom from emotional dependency is freedom from control, and the rarest form of control is self-control. Once you cultivate it, influence follows naturally. You are no longer swayed by opinion, emotion, or circumstance. You act from strategy, from awareness, from position. And in doing so, you step into a zone where power is not given. It is earned quietly, deliberately, and ruthlessly. Influence is subtle, almost invisible. It does not announce itself with loud words or aggressive actions. True influence works in silence, in perception, in the careful shaping of reality without overt control. Most people try to argue, persuade, or convince. They think influence is about being heard, but real influence is about being felt. It begins with understanding human behavior. People are guided not by logic alone, but by perception, emotion, and framing. They respond to how situations are presented, who presents them, and the invisible cues surrounding the interaction. Powerful individuals leverage this without appearing manipulative. They create environments where people arrive at decisions themselves, yet those decisions align with the strategist's objectives. It is the art of shaping thought without force. Consider a negotiation. The people are discussing terms. One is loud, argumentative, aggressive. The other remains calm. Listening carefully, they ask the right questions, offer subtle suggestions, and let the other party fill in the gaps. By the end, the aggressive negotiator feels like the outcome was their idea, but in reality, they follow the calm strategist's plan. This is influence, quiet, patient, deliberate. It works because humans are predictably biased. We follow patterns, rely on framing, and seek validation for choices. By understanding these tendencies, the influencer does not fight resistance, they guide it. Influence is also about timing. A suggestion made too early is ignored. Too late, it is irrelevant. But when offered at the precise moment, it feels natural. Inevitably, even inevitable, this subtle control creates authority without confrontation. People follow those who appear to understand the rules of reality better than they do. They respect those who create clarity from chaos. They trust those who remain composed while others flail. And the fascinating truth is, the more you practice influence without overt force, the less people realize they are being guided. It becomes invisible, effortless, and almost magical. Influence is not about persuasion alone. It is about anticipation, observation, framing reality so that your objectives feel like the natural course of action to others. It is the psychology behind why some people always seem to get their way, not because they demand it, but because they understand the currents beneath every interaction. And the key to mastering influence? Emotional neutrality. The moment you react impulsively, your leverage diminishes. The moment you overstate your intention, you create resistance. But when you act with calm clarity, the world bends quietly around you. This is why the most powerful people rarely argue. They rarely need to convince others outright. They observe, they guide, they shape, and when action is required, it is precise, decisive, and unstoppable. Influence, therefore, is not about force. It is the quiet art of control. It is strategic, patient, invisible, and once you understand this, you begin to see every interaction differently. Every conversation, every meeting, every casual encounter becomes a potential exercise in subtle authority. Because true power is not in being louder than others. It is in making others follow without realizing they are doing so. Ruthlessness. It is a word that makes most people uncomfortable. They imagine cruelty, deception, a lack of morality, but true ruthlessness is far subtler. It is not about hurting others. It is about acting decisively when necessary, without hesitation, without letting emotion cloud judgment. It is the discipline to enforce boundaries and protect your position in a world that rarely values fairness. Consider a leader faced with a difficult decision. One option may be comfortable, pleasing to others, or morally reassuring, but it compromises long-term stability or influence. Another choice may be harder, harsher, or unpopular, but it secures control, maintains respect, and positions them for greater authority. The ruthless individual chooses the latter. Not impulsively, not vindictable. Why? Strategically. Controlled ruthlessness balances restraint and action. It recognizes when silence is power and when decisive movement is necessary, when to wait and when to strike, when to yield and when to hold firm. Many mistake hesitation for caution, but the strategically ruthless use it as a tool. They observe, they gather intelligence, they wait for the right moment to act, ensuring maximum impact with minimal exposure. This form of ruthlessness earns respect, not fear. People understand boundaries. They recognize consequence. They respond to clarity and authority. Ruthlessness also requires emotional mastery. Reacting impulsively or vengefully is not power, it is weakness disguised as action. True ruthlessness is deliberate. Every word, every gesture, every decision is calculated. And yet, it is not always visible. The most powerful displays of ruthlessness are often invisible to the untrained eye. Decisions made quietly, with precision, without spectacle, influence asserted subtly, control maintained without unnecessary confrontation. In relationships, ruthlessness may mean refusing to tolerate disrespect, not out of anger, but out of necessity. In business, it may mean taking actions others avoid because of fear or uncertainty. In life, it is the ability to act when others hesitate, while maintaining composure, reputation, and leverage. Controlled ruthlessness is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is the courage to prioritize strategy over sentiment, to enforce rules without being dominated by emotion, to protect your position with discipline rather than aggression. And here is the crucial truth. Those who master controlled ruthlessness are rarely challenged successfully because they are predictable only to themselves. They act when it matters. They remain calm when others panic. They hold influence without appearing forceful. And they understand one thing above all: restraint is power, and action is authority, but timing determines the outcome of both. Once you combine observation, emotional control, detachment, influence, and this controlled ruthlessness, you create a presence that is almost untouchable. The world cannot manipulate you. Circumstances cannot shake you. Others cannot predict your moves. And in that space, true power exists, because the moment ruthlessness becomes strategic, it becomes unstoppable. Impatience is the enemy of power. We live in a world that rewards immediacy, quick reactions, instant gratification, fast wins. But true influence, True authority is rarely built in the moment, it is cultivated over time. The long game requires patience, discipline, strategic foresight. Most people react emotionally. They chase short-term victories, thinking that immediate action equals success. They respond impulsively to slights, act on fleeting emotions, and measure progress in moments rather than patterns. And yet, in doing so, they sacrifice long-term advantage. Those who play the long game understand something fundamental. Life is not a series of isolated events. Every interaction, every decision, every pause builds into a larger narrative. They see beyond immediate outcomes. They anticipate consequences. They recognize the subtle ways influence accumulates. Over time, consider negotiations, relationships, or career progression. One reaction today may seem minor, but it sets the tone for weeks, months, or even years. One measured pause can redirect the conversation in your favor. One deliberate decision can secure respect that grows silently but persistently. Patience in power is not weakness, it is control. It allows you to observe patterns, understand motivations, and time your moves perfectly. It transforms impulsive reactions into calculated strategy. The long game also requires detachment. The person who is attached to immediate approval, recognition, or results cannot see the broader picture. They panic when progress is slow. They overreact to setbacks. They act prematurely, exposing weakness. But the long game strategist is different. They are calm. They are patient. They wait, not out of fear, not out of indecision, but out of clarity. Every move is deliberate. Every response is measured. Every opportunity is considered before action. And over time, this consistency compounds. People begin to notice reliability. Authority grows naturally. Influence becomes silent yet undeniable. Decisions are respected. Presence becomes commanding. Playing the long game also allows you to anticipate the moves of others. By observing without reaction, you see patterns they cannot hide. You detect motivations they cannot disguise. And when it is time to act, you strike with precision and certainty. Short-term victories may satisfy pride, but they rarely build power. Long-term strategy creates a foundation that is almost impossible to undermine. And this is where patience becomes ruthlessness in disguise. You act not for the immediate thrill of winning, but for the certainty of controlling outcomes over time. You conserve energy. You maintain focus. You become untouchable because your actions are always deliberate. The long game teaches one essential truth. Life rewards those who endure strategically, who observe silently, and who respond with precision. Quick reactions may win battles, but long-term strategy wins wars. And once you understand this, your perception of every interaction changes. Every choice becomes part of a larger pattern. Every delay is a weapon, every silence a tool, because in the world of power, patience is more than virtue, it is dominance. Power begins not with action, it begins with observation. To influence, to dominate, to control outcomes, you must first understand the people around you. And understanding is more than listening, it is analyzing, decoding, seeing what others cannot or will not see. Every person leaves clues, a glance, a hesitation, a slight shift in posture, a pause before responding. These are not random. They are windows into intention, motivation, and character. The strategist reads these signs. They notice patterns over time. They track inconsistencies. They see where a person's confidence is genuine and where it is a mask. Consider a colleague who always speaks boldly in meetings but avoids decision-making. When responsibility lands on them, on the surface, they appear confident, but observation reveals their fear of accountability. That insight allows a strategist to predict their actions, anticipate their moves, and position themselves advantageously. Human behavior is predictable if you know what to look for. We repeat patterns. We reveal desires unconsciously. We betray our fears in micro-expressions, in tone, in subtle habits. A person who understands this does not trust blindly. They see beyond words. They focus on actions, consistency, and nonverbal cues. The strategic observer is not reactive, they are proactive. They anticipate moves. They prepare for objections. They calculate influence long before a confrontation occurs. Reading people is also about understanding emotional triggers. Everyone has them. Every slight, every compliment, every tone can shift behavior. A strategist uses this knowledge quietly, without cruelty, simply to predict and manage outcomes. Consider influence. In social dynamics, Some people dominate spaces simply because they sense hesitation, fear, or overeagerness in others. The ones who can read these cues adjust instantly. They respond in ways that maintain their authority and subtly guide others. This is the difference between being powerful and appearing powerful. Those who cannot read people are reactive. They chase results. They guess intentions. They misjudge situations. Those who can read people act decisively. They influence outcomes before events fully unfold. They are rarely surprised. They hold control without overt force. Reading people also requires emotional detachment. If you are emotionally involved, you see what you want to see, not what is. You misinterpret actions. You underestimate deception. You become predictable. A strategist avoids this trap. Observation is calm, detached, and analytical. It is silent, but relentless. Through this lens, every conversation, every encounter, every negotiation becomes a field of intelligence. Every reaction, every hesitation, every glance is data, and the person who gathers and interprets that data gains. A power few realize exists because influence does not rely on force. It relies on understanding. It relies on predicting behavior. It relies on acting from knowledge rather than emotion. When you learn to read people like a strategist, the world becomes transparent. And in transparency, you gain control. You no longer react blindly. Presence is invisible, yet undeniable. It is not about speaking the loudest, commanding attention, or forcing respect. It is about being calm, consistent, controlled, unshakable. Those who possess presence do not need to prove themselves. The room notices them anyway. The conversation bends subtly toward their influence. Decisions feel guided even if no one realizes why. Presence is the sum of everything you have learned so far: emotional control, detachment, silence, observation, and strategic ruthlessness. It is the culmination of subtle mastery over yourself and the environment. Imagine entering a room. Everyone is talking, laughing, reacting. People jockey for attention, vying for influence. Then you arrive. There is no dramatic entrance, no loud proclamation, just calm, deliberate movement. Eyes notice. Conversations pause. Energy shifts. Why? Because presence is perception, carefully curated through consistent behavior. It is calm in chaos. It is steadiness when others panic. It is confidence that requires no validation. Unshakable presence is not about arrogance. It is about certainty. It signals one truth clearly and silently: this person is in control. And control commands respect. Those with presence influence without words. They do not need to argue, negotiate aggressively, or over-explain. People instinctively align with them because uncertainty and hesitation are absent. Decisions are made confidently. Actions are deliberate. Boundaries are maintained effortlessly. The most compelling presence is also invisible in its power. It does not intimidate through force. It inspires through perception. Others feel drawn, guided, and often unconsciously influenced. They sense authority, even if it is unspoken. Building this presence requires mastery of self before mastery of others. You must first control your reactions. Detach from any ediness. Observe silently. Act deliberately. Only then can presence emerge naturally. Consistency is crucial. One moment of panic, one emotional outburst, or one lapse in judgment can unravel the perception carefully built over time. Presence is reinforced through repeated, deliberate behavior, through patience, calmness, and strategic action. It is also about visibility without dependency. A person with presence does not chase attention. They allow attention to find them. Their reputation precedes them, and their influence spreads quietly but inexorably. Ultimately, unshakable presence is a form of silent dominance. It is the ability to occupy space physically, emotionally, and psychologically without forcing others to yield. People sense the authority behind composure, the weight behind restraint, and the influence behind observation. And in a world where noise is mistaken for power, presence stands apart. Those who master it do not merely participate, they shape the environment around them. They influence outcomes without effort. They command respect without demand. Presence is not taught. It is cultivated. It is lived. And once it exists, it becomes impossible to ignore. Because true authority is not measured in words, it is felt. Power is not given. It is built. Quietly, deliberately, relentlessly, and it begins within. We started this journey with a simple question. What if everything you were taught about fairness is holding you back, You've seen it unfold. How emotional reactions betray strength. How niceness can become a liability. How silence, observation, detachment, influence, and strategic ruthlessness weave together into an invisible web of authority. Now, the picture is clear. The world does not operate on fairness. It does not reward intention or effort alone. It responds to control, to presence, to strategy. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The rules are no longer abstract. They are real, practical, applicable. Imagine the opening scene again. Someone interrupts you, dismisses your idea, undermines your contribution. Before, you might have reacted emotionally, defended yourself, explained too much, sought validation. You know the cost of that now. Now, you pause, you observe, you measure, you assess the motives, the emotions, and the patterns at play. You respond deliberately, or perhaps you wait. The situation unfolds, revealing more than confrontation ever could. Your presence alone commands attention. Your silence forces reflection. Your detachment ensures clarity. Your influence guides outcomes. And your calculated ruthlessness guarantees boundaries are respected. This is the essence of power. Not loudness, not aggression, not emotional reaction. Internal control precedes external influence. Awareness precedes action. Discipline precedes authority. Power is not something you chase, it is something you cultivate. And the most profound truth, those who understand these principles rarely feel powerless again. They see through manipulation. They anticipate behavior. They operate from strength, not fear. They move strategically, shaping outcomes quietly yet decisively. It is a shift in perception as much as it is a shift in behavior. You begin to notice patterns in life where others are blind. You recognize leverage that others overlook. You respond with clarity while the world reacts impulsively. This knowledge is both liberating and humbling. Because once you realize the world does not reward fairness, once you embrace strategic control, influence, and measured ruthlessness, you step into a zone few will ever enter, the zone of quiet power, of untouchable authority, of deliberate dominance. And here is the final insight. This is not about harming others. It is about protecting yourself, maintaining your position, navigating a world that will not pause for your intentions. Ruthlessness is not cruelty. It is clarity. Control is not tyranny. It is awareness. And mastery begins within. So the question now is not whether you can gain power. It is whether you are willing to see the truth and act on it. Because once you do, everything changes. Your interactions, your decisions, your perception of the world. And most importantly, your perception of yourself. Power is not external. It is internal. It is not about dominating others. It is about mastering yourself. When that mastery exists, influence follows, respect follows, authority follows. Once you understand this, you can never return to the person who believed fairness would protect them. The rules are no longer illusions. They are real. And the world bends quietly, predictably, around those who understand them. It begins with calm, observation, detachment, influence, strategic ruthlessness. And it ends with one truth. Control is everything. Everything else is secondary.